Exodus chapter 33, a lot has happened since we last visited the Exodus passage. I remember, I think on Friday we got the Ten Commandments. So remember, the overall purpose, the mission, was to lead the Hebrew people out of Egypt. For what purpose? To worship God. That God was going to form a people, okay, the descendants of Abraham, the promise he made to Abraham, and the covenant he established with Abraham. He's holding true to that promise. So he leads them out into the wilderness, and then they finally reach the point of worship, Mount Sinai, where, again, another sacred covenant. Remember, covenant is a relationship between two people. Another covenant has been established, a very sacred covenant where they're going to worship God, and all the firstborn sons in Israel were going to be the priest. And then there was going to be this special tabernacle, this meeting tent constructed. That was chapters 25 to 31. Okay? And this meeting tent was going to be like a movable Mount Sinai. So Mount Sinai was when Moses climbed the mountain to encounter God, and that's where God establishes the covenant with all of Israel on Mount Sinai. This tabernacle that was established, that was going to be a very sacred and holy place, a precursor to the temple, was like a movable Mount Sinai. But one of these days, Moses goes up to the mountain, and for some reason, as he's up there for a very long time, 40 days, 40 nights. The people of Israel are either frustrated, worried, who knows? But they decided to build a golden calf. Okay? And to worship that. Remember, as they were crossing the Red Sea, they had livestock, including one of the things was cattle. And when they're in the wilderness, they're complaining to God about hunger, yet they have the cattle. They didn't eat the cattle because the Egyptians, where they came from, where they lived for 400 years, considered the cattle to be a sacred god. So the Israelites kind of like had that in their mind, that they never got out of that habit yet. It's not a god. As the 10 plagues tells us in Egypt, God is more powerful than all the Egyptian gods. But out of fear or desperation or anger, Moses isn't coming down to the mountain according to their eyes. And so they go back to the old ways of life. They go back to the Egyptian gods. That leads Moses to break the 10 Commandments because they have broken the covenant. And now today's first reading, we get at least a partial portion of God renewing the covenant. Okay, so two things here that I want to bring out. The first is that the firstborn of Israel, the firstborn males of Israel, will no longer be the priest of this renewed covenant. It's going to be the Levi priesthood, okay, the sons of Levi, one of the 12 sons of Jacob. Okay, so that even leads right up to Jesus' time. The priest, okay, that ministered to the temple were descendants of the tribe of Levi. Okay. But second and most importantly, the covenant now is going to be not directly with Israel, but directly with Moses and indirectly with Israel. Moses is going to be the mediator between God and the people of Israel. Sounds familiar, right? Who's the mediator of the new covenant? Well, it's the new and better Moses, that is Jesus Christ. Okay. But what happens out of the sins of Israel, and this might be the most important point in all this, out of the sins of Israel, because of their sins, Moses actually grows into a more intimate relationship with God. So look at some of the descriptions here. The Lord used to speak to Moses face to face. Up to this point, that was unheard of. The only time we heard any sort of kind of communion and intimacy with God and somebody was with God and Adam, when God walked in the garden with Adam. The Lord used to speak to Moses face to face as one man speaks to another. And then we get further down, we don't get it in today's first read-in, but this idea of Moses seeing the glory of God, but kind of indirectly, okay? Moses sees kind of like the backside of God because he's not even holy enough to see God face to face. But again, the whole point of all this is that in a way, the covenant, the relationship is getting deeper, but it's just with God and Moses now. And we're going to see as we continue through Exodus, the people have to go to Moses now in order to get something from the Lord. Because Moses was the one that was first and foremost faithful to the covenant. And so too with us. We as members of this new covenant, we have this special relationship with Jesus Christ, who also happens to be the Son of God. So we in a way, we kind of participate in the same way, especially in the Mass and in the Eucharist. That same intimate level that Moses had with God, we have because of our configuration with Jesus Christ. May God bless you.